Hello and welcome to a special edition of Updog Sports Talk. Here on Updog Sports Talk, if you have not found this before, we deliver honest fan-focused coverage that spotlights the teams, athletes, and communities that are often overlooked by mainstream sports media. We do this because your team is a story worth telling. And today, we're going to be telling the story of the teams in the American. And who better to have on the show than the American Conference homer himself, Omar Rashon. Welcome, Omar.
Thank you, Justin. Yeah, I don't take that title lightly. I'm the Americans counter to Dave Portnoy. I haven't been invited to any pregame American Conference shows, but with the American Conference tailgate happening, maybe the honorable Mr. Pernetti will fly me out to one of these games, and I'll rock an American school of choice and sing the great praises of the America's conference in the American semi-sesquicentennial year, whatever the 250th is. Trying to sound smarter than I am.
Yeah, I mean, or you just get a nice Soar the Eagles shirt and you're good to go.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so tonight we'll be going over each team in alphabetical order. We'll be going over their biggest strength, what maybe our biggest concern is with that team, and then go over what a successful season looks like for that team. These are going to be, pretty decently high level. I know for us, we went more in depth on these teams on our Substack previews. And then, Omar, you actually have an American Conference preview that's also really in depth coming up.
Yes, probably more in depth than what we'll discuss here, but around 2,500 words of just the whole conference, again from a top level, but more so from a storyline perspective in terms of hey, here's who could win the league. Here's some of the sleepers. Here's some storylines to watch out for in the league. So that'll be coming out soon for AsForFootball. I just have to give it one more read through before I send it over to our lead Dano. But I'm excited. I'm excited about this year and of course this podcast right now.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. And yeah, I'm excited to dive into this conference. This is a conference that we were even talking just before the show. It in the past few years, it feels like there's been your top contenders and then teams are kind of just trying to make it to a bowl. This year, this thing feels wide open. A lot of the top contenders had a ton of turnover this offseason as we'll get into. And we have a lot of sleeper candidates in here waiting in the midst. So let's go ahead and get into it. So the Army Black Knights are first up. And Omar, as a resident Army fan, I'm just going to let you take this away.
Yeah, so I guess the biggest strength for Army right now is the offensive continuity. With Chase Helms having a year underneath his sleeve. And it's kind of interesting because we kind of saw a similar progression with Bryson Daly in 2023, where the first year was kind of a growing pain year. And then, of course, we all know what happened in 2024. 6th place in the Heisman Trophy running, Army wins the American. Bryson Daly runs for 32 touchdowns. Just an outstanding year for him there. Caleb Helms is similar, where 2025 had some growing pains. First year as a starter, some questionable decisions throwing the ball. But I think this year will be a breakout for him, especially with the offensive line that he has returning in Paolo Gennarelli, a former, I think, second-team All-American for one of the selectors, whether it's Sporting News or something. You have Brady Small at center, Teddy Williams as well. So this offense in general, this run game, I'll say as a whole, is of course a strong suit, and it always is for Army, but more so this year. Experienced offensive line. At the fullback position, you have pick your poison. You got power in Jake Rendina, Carson Smith, and then you also have finesse and explosiveness, like we saw in the bowl game with God's Power and Wawie. So, just in short, the offense is going to be amazing this year, I think. That's the biggest strength, honestly. Obviously, you look at the run, but at a more deeper, that this might be one of Army's best offenses in the past few years.
Yeah, last year was kind of a lot of growing pains. This year, it really feels like we've gone through those growing pains, and now it'll probably be operating like a well-oiled machine. I had the same thing down as my strength, so I'll go into my biggest concern first, and that is I normally, when it comes to Army, I'm not too worried about personnel changes because the service academies are very used to. You have one group of seniors gone, next group steps up, they're ready to go. So I'm going to focus on the defensive coordinator change. There's always a degree of variability when it comes to having a new defensive coordinator. So I'm very curious to see how that shakes out.
Yes, and mine is on the same lines, essentially. But The defensive coordinator point is particularly interesting, Justin, because Nate Woody, the way that his defense operated, and of course he had ties to Georgia Tech, had ties to Wofford, is the defense is meant to force teams to prolong drives and then step up, essentially bend but don't break defense is what Army fans came to like really, associate it with. And so now maybe the defense now takes the same philosophy, but the personnel is different because Army's staff has been very resistant to change, and it's kind of strange, especially on the defensive side, just because of how good Army's teams have been in the past decade since 2017. So it's kind of strange, but this is the most turnover this staff has had, I think, in the Monken era, in Coach Monken's era, which continuing the defense, in particular, the linebacker position really concerns me as a whole because we're used to having like one or two guys that rotated in or coming back each year. This year, with Caleb Fortner gone, and man, his name's escaping me, and Don Thomas, both graduating, outstanding middle linebackers, pretty much your stereotypical tough, heady Army linebacker. Both those guys are gone, and behind them are guys that just did not get much playing time. Like they were not situational players, they weren't rotational guys. It was just like it was Fortner and Thomas pretty much the whole year because Army was in a bunch of high leverage situations on defense. Not like 2024 where they could rotate guys in to get experience because Army's up by a lot. So the linebacker position has almost no experience. Those guys sat behind two of the best linebackers in the American, and they probably did learn a lot. I'm not denying that, but putting that into practice in the game, like there might be some growing pains, but thankfully this year, Army starts off with Bryant and not a FCS top 25 school in Tarleton. So that definitely helps out with that turnover.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to go right back to you here because you're the Army fan. So what does success look like to you in 2026?
Beating Navy and winning the Commander-in-Chief's trophy. But okay, but I guess beyond that, I think definitely a bowl game, but I think honestly, success, and Army fans are spoiled in the American, success looks like winning the American, I'd say. And I'd say anything short of that is it's nice and it's not a disappointment, but we kind of set the bar higher in our first year. But success definitely is, I'd say, a high level bowl game. Honestly, part of me, I think Army fans would love to see Army go to the Liberty Bowl and do what Navy did last year, beat a Power 4 team in the Liberty Bowl. Outdo Navy because Army has yet to win that bowl game. But that's success. And I mentioned in the Mountain West podcast that we did that Army has never had a senior class go 4-0 against Air Force. I definitely think if this senior class is able to do that, like that would just be amazing, honestly. Like I can't even imagine it because as a kid, like Army's always been trying to play catch up with Air Force. So that's always how it's been. So I think that's what success looks like. A CIC, a probably like 8 or 9 win season, and a bowl game against a Power 4 opponent, particularly the Liberty Bowl, I'd say like realistically. So yeah.
Just so you know, I fully expected you to say the Commander-in-Chief trophy first. So that was right on par, and I do agree with that as well. I'm thinking the Commander-in-Chief trophy, to really put a number on it, I think like an 8-win season would be very, very, very good, very solid. That has you feeling pretty good about how the year went. And then, yeah, like you said, getting to a bowl game against a Power 4 opponent and beating them, I think would be a fantastic year for Army. So we go to the Charlotte 49ers. Now, this gets us to a team with a completely different set of goals here. What is the element that can really make you most excited for Charlotte this year? We'll focus more on the positives because I'm sure there's a lot you can say negatively about a team that went 1-11 last year.
So I'm gonna go from a unique perspective, and I'm typically a guy that likes to look at like, okay, what's already there. Because the transfer portal, analyzing teams based on the transfer portals, analyzing based on potential. But I really think with Charlotte's haul at these particular positions that they have a really high ceiling compared to what happened last year. I'm going to talk about the run game. Really excited about the running game because, and this is weird because Charlotte averaged, I think, 81, 82 yards per game, rushing less than 3 yards per carry. Pretty much a non-factor. But Coach Tim Albin got some really good players and some really proven players that really excite me. High ceiling guys. Like they got Chance Williams, who had 878 yards with Grambling in 2023. He transferred to the FBS level, kind of didn't get playing time the last 2 years, and this is kind of his last shot. But more importantly, on the line, they have Matthias Nielsen, who was a three-time all-conference guy at Virginia Union. And if you aren't familiar with Virginia Union, in that time, Nielsen had blocked for, this is 2023 through 2025, he had blocked for two 2,000-yard rushers in Jada Byers. Not 1,000-yard rushers, 2,000-yard rushers in Jada Byers and Curtis Allen. And Curtis Allen won the Harlan Hill Award for the essentially the Division II Heisman Trophy, and he rocked it in the American Bowl. He signed an undrafted free agent deal, I think, with the Seahawks, and I expect him to make the team, get some carries. But that's a proven, like, honestly, like, I think Nielsen's going to do well on this offensive line. At least getting him, but that's huge for this team. There's nowhere to go but up for this run game. But I think the run game is going to help out the passing game, of course, help out the play action game, because the play action game was pretty much non-existent last year. And going with the passing game, too, both the quarterbacks from last year returning, Grayson Loftus and Connor Harrell. But the run game has a really high ceiling, and we know that Coach Albin loves to run the ball, did it a lot at Ohio, had a lot of great, solid backs at Ohio. So really excited about the running game.
Yeah, and I'll go a little bit further here on the pass game. Like I'm really excited about both those quarterbacks being back, especially Harrell, because it really felt like things took a turn for the worse for Charlotte when he got hurt last year. So getting him back already sets you a baseline of, he's going to do pretty well. I mean, he managed to outduel that really dynamic Monmouth offense. So, he's got a decent pedigree there. He didn't get to play much more after that. But also, even going further, Cole Gonzalez out of Western Carolina comes in. I don't remember if he was at Western Carolina last year. He was somewhere else.
I think he went to Pitt last year.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay. That's what happened. Didn't get to play there, but showed really well at Western Carolina. I'm excited to see him as well. I think he could be really good if Harrell does not fully take the job, or if his recovery's a little bit slow. And so you go pretty deep there at quarterback, and then the receivers they brought in. I mean, I could spend a long time listing off the list, but their receiver room is completely revamped, and I think it looks really good. So a really good complement there between the pass game and run game should at least make Charlotte, like, I think people are going to enjoy watching Charlotte play more this year after last year was pretty rough.
Yeah, it was, honestly, and I really do feel for Charlotte fans. I feel for any team that's pretty much like the butt of the joke in every conference, and joining the American, like, I'll be honest, like, I take every opponent seriously as an Army fan, but I was probably more scared about Tarleton than I was Charlotte during the season, because the Charlotte game ended up being a wash by the second half. I mean, the second half of play for that Army Charlotte game was probably one of the most, like, forgettable from the last few years of any Army game, kind of just, like, buying the time. So, but I think that's a huge thing about them being fun. But I think that with them being more balanced, like, they're going to be harder to prep for.
Yeah. I think we're going to at least see more of the vision of what Tim Albin has, because that was a huge hire. Like, I mean, Charlotte has taken their chances on guys before, and it hasn't really worked out. That's why they're in this position at the bottom of the American. It's not that this program doesn't have resources, doesn't have potential. They do, and I'm really excited to see that start to show a little bit. So what does success look like for Charlotte this year?
I think success for Charlotte looks like winning, of course, improving on their win total, but I want to say just, and I say that for a lot of teams that come off bad seasons, just beating their peer schools, sort of that in the standings. It's kind of hard, though, because Charlotte's at the very bottom. But they can beat a UAB, beat a Tulsa. I'll even go as far as to say, like, beat a Rice, honestly. Beat those schools, get a few wins, and at least show progress. I think that's successful for the 49ers. They just cannot have another season that just breeds apathy. They just can't have that. I don't think the program's in any existential crisis, but I think that starts to affect, like, the talent that you get in the transfer portal. Like, are you getting... I think there just has to be buzz nowadays. And I know the transfer portal is still kind of young. Everyone's kind of figuring out these trends. But it just doesn't strike me as a good thing for a program just to be constantly moribund and hopeless.
Yeah. I'm thinking you got to show some progress. Probably, I won't put a win total on this one, but I think in general, just show some progress, win a few more games, and also really just be more competitive as well. Like, if you're losing games like 45-42, like, at the very least, you've been in that game. You put on a good show for the fans, and you can start to see the vision of what's going on here. So yeah, I think it's about just any sort of positive momentum is a huge plus for them. We go to the other side, other part of North Carolina, to Greenville, to talk about the East Carolina Pirates. Fly the Jolly Roger. What excites you the most about the Pirates this year?
So everyone looks at the offense with East Carolina last year, and it was amazing. I mean, Anthony Smith was a draft pick, 7th round draft pick. Kate Nowser threw for over 3,000 yards, but the Pirates return a good amount on defense, especially the defensive line. And the trio of Josiah Robinson, Ryan Roseborough, and Kendrick DeJour just anchor that defensive line. They're going to wreak havoc on the rest of the league. And I think you're going to see this East Carolina team. I don't think the offense will be as exciting, but I think this will be a more complete team on defense just with what they return. And I think they're going to have to be more complete. The defense is going to have to step up more, at least in the first couple weeks of the season, while the offense sort of starts to gel. Because, again, there's another transfer quarterback in Emory Williams. And if you remember in 2024, like, Caden Hauser didn't really like take control of the starting job until the second half of the Army game, which was in mid to late October, at that point. So it took time. Last time they had a new transfer quarterback, and I expect it to be the same, really, even though Emory Williams sat behind probably two of the best quarterbacks you could, Cam Ward and Carson Beck. But I do think that the defense is going to have to really be the anchor, and luckily they have the defensive line to do it.
Yeah, agreed. I was going to mention the defensive line as well. So I'll go with the coordinator hires. I they had good coordinators there. It was kind of tough to lose those guys, but then they basically just took the super team of American coordinators that didn't get to follow their head coach to whatever school for some reason. Jordan Davis was the offensive coordinator at North Texas last year, and of course we all know that North Texas offense was excellent. So he knows what he's doing. He knows how to score a lot of points in this conference. And then you go on the defensive side, Jordan Hankins, defensive coordinator at Memphis. When he got there, he helped Memphis take a real nice step forward defensively. So both coaches, again, that really know how to win in this conference. I think it was huge to grab those two and really keep this momentum going for East Carolina.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, East Carolina is interesting because I feel like they're bound for a breakthrough, but it's like at the same time, like I'm not sure I like really want to take stock yet in the Pirates, but like I mean, Blake Harrell's really putting it together. I don't know what he did in that late season surge in 2024, but obviously it's working and the players are bought in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll go ahead to say also the schedule shakes out pretty well for them too. You get past the opener against Alabama, and they really avoid what feels like a lot of the top contenders in the conference. So I like that a lot. They also host the Owl Gauntlet at home. Half of their home games are against Owls this year.
Oh man, I don't know. I guess pirate ships are made out of wood, so it kind of makes sense.
It was so random. Like, rarely does anyone in the American play all three Owls every year because they're so geographically far apart. But not only playing them, but playing all three at home is just a funny little quirk I found in the schedule. What is your biggest concern for the Pirates?
I think my biggest concern, I think I talked about it just expanding more about the offense gelling because it's a completely new set of skills. I don't deny that Emory Williams has the talent or that he is the guy to lead them, but just the fact that it's going to take time, and I guess maybe it's a good thing that they're starting off with Alabama and working out those kinks trial by the biggest fire imaginable. But I just can't deny that is a doubt there. I mean, especially with the skills that they lost. Like I said, like Anthony Smith being gone, with their leading rusher as well being gone too. So like just a completely different team. So that's just my biggest concern, just at the skills.
Yeah, there's a greater variance in outcomes when you have more change. And while there's a lot of parts to like about this portal class, at the same time, like all of this has to gel together and do so quickly. They cannot afford to lose confidence after the Alabama game, can't have injuries hit, all of that. So really for me as well, it's just all the new parts are going to be, those need to come together. So that is where if they have a disappointing season, it's because things don't gel and things kind of drop off a little bit. What does success look like for the Pirates?
For the Pirates, I want to say that success for Pirates, I think the fans are ready to take the next step. And I think it's been too long since they've won the conference. And the fact, too, that East Carolina the fan base is a proud fan base with plenty of tradition. You talk about David Garrard, You talked about the '08 team that upset not just Virginia Tech, but West Virginia too. Was ranked in the BCS for a while, and then 2014's team that was ranked in the initial college football playoff rankings for a while, as well with Shane Carden. Like this is a program that isn't happy with going 8-4, winning the Military Bowl, and maybe they're happy now because the bar dropped a little bit after they fired Ruffin McNeil. But I think the fans, after just 2 straight years of really solid football, are ready for a breakthrough. So I'm gonna say that in a year like this, where Memphis is unknown, USF is unknown, North Texas is definitely an unknown. The really only known commodities are Tulane and UTSA and the service academies to a degree. Like, I think the fans are really going to gun for a conference championship. I think that's what success for this program looks like this year.
Yeah, I agree. Like this year is such a great opportunity for the Pirates to win the conference. Now, again, not just because of even all the turnover that's going on with the top programs, but also just again like how the schedule, at least on the surface at this point in July. I think this will air in August, but we're in July when we're recording this. You know, the way the schedule seems to shake out at this point, it feels like it's playing out in their favor as well. So if not now, when? But at the same time, if they win 8 games, beat an ACC team in a bowl game again, I think they'll be happy with that as well after the dark ages they went through for a little bit. But I do agree. I think they're looking for a little bit more, just to at least look more competitive in the American race. Like, right last few years, they're probably about like that fourth or fifth place team. Like, okay, let's get into the top three, maybe make the American Championship. And I think that looks really good for them. So let's go to the Florida Atlantic Owls now. A very interesting team. I think that there's been a lot of excitement around them this offseason. What are your thoughts on them? I think I know where you're going to go with your biggest strength, but let's talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Like everyone's going to talk about Caden Veldkamp and Easton Messer, and I'm just going to talk about them too. Like, because this team is hard to prepare for. I think anytime you have to prepare for an extreme, and everyone talks about the triple option, but I want to say that preparing for the air raid, even the run and shoot too, when we talk about Hawaii, it's just equally as hard because it's one extreme. Like, it's one extreme that you're preparing for, and especially too if you're playing against FAU early in the season in that heat out there in Boca Raton. Like, I think that Caden Veldkamp and Easton Messer are really gonna be great. But the thing is too is, like, of course teams are gonna keen on Easton Messer, but there's three other weapons at the line of on the edges at the line of scrimmage. I'm not gonna say the backfield to differentiate from that, but at the line of scrimmage to account for in an air raid. So you can't over allocate your resources on defenses to one receiver in an air raid scheme. So I'm really excited about the passing game in particular, obviously, and I think that Veldkamp has a chance to have a really, really great year.
Yeah, these guys are going to put up numbers. And fun fact, Easton Messer is the only receiver that caught over 100 passes last year that is back on the same team this year. So that is a nice little fun fact for you today. But they're well worth the price of admission for sure. If you're in the area, make sure you watch the scene because they're going to be a lot of fun to watch. So I'll go to my concern because we touched on that. I think the turnovers is the big thing. Like, I get it. Like, their offense, it's the air raid. It's going to be aggressive. So turnovers are a nature of doing business. But you cannot do it to the level that you did last year. This team was dead last in turnover margin in college football. Nobody gave it away more times than the 29 giveaways the Owls had last year. And to top it all off, like I mentioned the margin as well, the defense will need to step up and force more turnovers as well. Because again, the turnovers aren't going to entirely go away. I mean, you cut 29 turnovers in half, and you're still one of the worst teams turning the ball over in college football. But I mean, you cut it in half. The defense needs to pick it up and force more on their end. And I think you're in the better spot now.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned turnovers because that's kind of where I'm going with my weakness. It's the secondary, and the good thing for FAU is, like, with the scheme like the air raid that they run under Coach Zach Hitley is like the defense doesn't have to be like stellar. They don't have to be super great. They just have to make sure that the other team is falling behind a little bit in the track meet. And the secondary just was not forcing those turnovers at all. Like, they were just letting teams throw the ball at will. They only intercepted 3 passes last year. But luckily, I really like the guys that they got from the transfer portal. I really like Alston Ware, Division II All-American, 10 pass breakups last year, and he's from Ferris State. So any questions about whether guys from Ferris State can ball were just put to rest after Trinidad Chambliss' year last year. So I mean, there's no doubt that he's going to improve the secondary. But they also have a former Ohio State commit and 4-star recruit in J.K. Johnson in the secondary. And I think if you're a defense, I think that if you're a defense that plays with a team that's on a team that runs an air raid, I think it's most important to focus on the pass to make sure that the other team's not out sprinting you. To make sure the other team is running I'm not even going to say an 800 meter. The other team's running a 400 meter pace while you're running a 100 meter pace, or a 100 meter sprint. So I think the secondary is a weakness, but I think that they'll be at least a little better. There's really nowhere to go but up for them.
Yeah, I agree completely. What does success look like for the Owls this year?
Well, I mean, it's easy to say that, this is a sleeper team in the American, but I think just getting back to a bowl is what success looks like for FAU. I mean, honestly, it feels that like the Lane Kiffin years are just so far away. I mean, he's already 2 schools removed from when he last coached at FAU. But like, I think just making a bowl game is probably the best because they haven't been to a bowl game since 2020 in the pandemic, and even the 2020 team kind of came with an asterisk because the team wasn't great. They did whatever they could. There was no bowl eligibility requirements that year, so they really haven't earned a bowl bid since 2019. So, and then definitely not as a member of the American Conference. So I think just getting back to a bowl game and getting the fans excited about a winner, because I think that the fans out there in Boca Raton will show up again. I think we'll see like more of a New Mexico effect again, like with a fun team that's easy to watch, easy to root for, and they already got the branding. Football on the beach is great branding for the program, so they just need a win.
Yeah, absolutely. They continue to take steps forward in that branding. Like you said, with the football on the beach, their uniforms, everything, like they are doing an excellent job of that. So I'll agree with you as well. Like making a bowl game is a huge accomplishment. I did not realize it had been that long. It did not feel like it's been that long. So they have not made a bowl game since joining the American. So making a bowl will be a huge thing. And I think also in general, like it maybe beat one of the top players at some point during the year. Just show that this team is going to become a factor in this conference, I think is what they want to see. So bowl game and maybe an upset over one of the top teams would be great. Now we go to a top contender, the Memphis Tigers. Charles Huff comes in. He's a proven winner. What do you think about the Tigers? What are you most excited about with this team?
So with the Tigers, I'm most excited about, it seems like most of the talent that they got through the portal, because this is a completely new team. This is a very hard team to research. It seems like a good amount of the talent that they got came on defense. And that's not to say that the offensive talent that they got through the portal is bad, but Michael Montgomery was essentially the heart and soul of the Southern Miss defense with 100-plus tackles. He's there this year. You have Amir Foster in the secondary, also from Southern Miss, 3 interceptions. So I think the linebackers and secondary I think that's the strength of this team, really. I think the strength of what they got in the portal. That's not to say that the offense isn't good, but I feel like the offense, the portal guys that they got are more so guys that have potential, with the exception of Marcus Stokes, of course, but guys that have potential but have yet to fulfill it. Like, I feel like we've seen results from the defensive gets that they got in the portal compared to the offense.
Yeah, I agree. You love getting those guys to come with, they've been with Charles Huff before, and really they're just like the tone setters for that defense. They're going to help build the culture with the coaches at that point. So I think that's always a good addition when you can get those guys to kind of follow you to your next destination. So I think that's going to be a huge thing for Memphis. Like I usually will pitch that players should just stay with their current program for at least 3 years. Maybe your senior year you decide to look for a richer contract or something, but at least 3 years, grow and develop. But if a coaching change happens, I'm okay with someone going and following that coach to their next destination. The coach can leave, you can follow them. I think that's pretty cool. But I will say the quarterbacks are an exciting one. Like Marcus Stokes out of West Florida, we know what he can do. He's a really talented quarterback. And then they also have Air Noland, who is a guy with immense potential. He has not gotten the shot yet because he was at Ohio State. He was supposed to be the future there. In comes Julian Sand after Nick Saban retired. Then he goes, I don't know why he went to South Carolina, to be honest. There was no way he was going to beat Lenore Sellers out for the job. I think he got lied to there. But now he goes to Memphis and he finally gets a chance to have a chance. So I'm very excited for that. Concern wise, I think we kind of hinted at this already. I mean, this is a completely new group. The good news is it's an experienced group. There's a lot of guys on this roster that have playing experience, especially in the offensive line. I think they added some of the most snaps on the offensive line compared to in the group of five, so group of six, whatever you want to call it, at least in the American Conference for sure. So I think that's good. But again, when you got name tags and handshakes, you have a lot of variability in like how things can go.
Yeah, I think for me, if I were to like pick a particular group that I wasn't as impressed with in terms of portal gets, I'm not to say the receiving core, honestly. The receiving core didn't really like jump out at me. I think the best guy that they got was Rashon Chapman. I mean, from USM, almost 20 yards per catch, and a guy that was with Huff at Marshall and USM. But that's not to say they didn't really get like solid additions. It's just that just happened to be, I think, the weakest pick of the draw because I think Coach Huff likes to run more of a run heavy scheme. Well, not run heavy, I should say, but not one that will rely on the passing game as much for sure. I mean, and it reflects, I think, through their portal gets that Dallas Hayden was a good portal get for them, a guy that actually ran for over 500 yards with Ohio State on a playoff team in 2022. So, I mean, but the receiving core, I think that's one kind of weakness, but not total. I say weakness like because that's like what you asked, but like I don't think it's a bad unit at all.
Yeah. And we don't really have to call it a weakness either. Like it's something that might it's most likely to keep a fan of the team up at night. That's where that is. I am excited for Talon Hayden. I've actually met him before, so it would be pretty cool to see him do well. He's a guy who's going to get them yards inside the tackles for sure, so and keep things moving. So that'll be pretty good for them. What does success look like for Memphis this year?
So this is the fan base with high aspirations and honestly an online fan base that has the mouth to match it, honestly, which, hey, that's good. That's all good. I mean, at least they like their team. But honestly, a playoff berth is definitely what success looks like. Not just winning the American, but making the playoff. And that starts week one. Like for a lot of schools, like non-conference in the group of six, like non-conferences, it's important, but it's not as important as some other team slates. Like Memphis UNLV might be an elimination game for the playoff. And I say that just because, like, I know it's week 0, but I mean, UNLV having a head-to-head advantage over the conference champion in the American, if Memphis ends up winning the American and UNLV have the same record, it's going to come down to head-to-head, obviously. So, like, that essentially is a playoff game in week 0, and Memphis doesn't have a Power 4 opponent this year either. So, I mean, it's huge, too, and I do believe that they also have Boise State, too, on top of that this year. So that's 2 elimination games. Like you're playing the best team in the Mountain West, and you're playing arguably the front runner of a team that's a close second to the American in my eyes for best group of 6 conference for that 5th conference champion spot. Like that's 2 elimination games, and so even if Memphis ends up winning the American, they go 8-0 in the American. They go 11-2 with the win in the conference championship game. This program's not going to be happy going to the Liberty Bowl, going to, let's see, what other ESPN Bowl would they be put in substitution, like the Hawaii Bowl. Like they're not going to be happy with that. This is a playoff or bust program, and I think getting Charles Huff to coach them, a guy that's a proven winner, a guy that's a win now guy, like I think that proves that.
Yeah, absolutely. I won't go as far as to say a playoff berth, although those UNLV and Boise State games are going to be a lot of fun. Which, by the way, shout out to Memphis for, especially the UNLV game. They scheduled a series this offseason. When we ended last year, which, by the way, last year ended very late, but when we ended, like, they did not have the game scheduled yet. So that was pretty cool that they added that. But making and winning the American Championship, I think, is still a huge one for Memphis because that was their biggest frustration with Ryan Silverfield was, they were always competitive, always a really good team. They would start out strong, but then when it came to the American title race, they would just always find a way to miss the conference title game. So I think at a minimum, making the conference title game, I mean, that would be, it's not like that people are going to take the pitchforks out. They go for this year, it's a whole new year, complete reset and all that. But I think if you make the conference championship game, already Charles Huff has made a statement that this program's going to get even better under his watch. And there's no reason they can't because they have a ton of resources.
Yeah, exactly. Like there really is no excuse, and I don't say that to insult Memphis fans, but like they can get the best NIL haul every year. They have the reputation. Like this is a team that should be front running for the playoff every year. They shouldn't be losing to UAB. They shouldn't be losing to East Carolina. Like this is a program, and I'm sure, and they'll admit that. They'll admit that is substandard. So yeah, it's playoff or bust. But I know it is Coach Huff's first year, so I can understand
What about the UAB game?
No bets this year.
None.
Nope, not gonna do it. Learn my lesson.
I'm gonna try again. All right, we'll go to the Navy midshipmen. We mentioned another one of the steady powers in this conference. What excites you the most about them?
So what excites me the most is I'm going to talk about like the defense returns a lot, but the offensive line. You have offensive line continuity as a service academy. That is an excellent foundation to have. Like the rest will fall into place. Like they got Hoke Smith, who had 12 starts at guard. They returned their center, probably the hugest piece of the offensive line, 12 starts from Cam Nichols, and then Sean Crowley had 12 starts at tackle last year. And then the other two positions are they're still figuring that out. But the offensive line is definitely going to help out because, Navy has a fresh start at the skills, and Braxton Woodson, he made the Shrine Bowl 1000, and I fully believe that is well deserved. He did amazing last year in relief, and as a passer, I think that he has a high ceiling. But at the skills, it is tough because you're replacing the greatest set of skills from a slot back, fullback, halfback position. I'm saying like this is the greatest set of skill players that they had at those positions since, honestly, like I'm just trying to think back because Navy has been a very quarterback driven scheme like since possibly the Paul Johnson days. Like the skills were really phenomenal. So like with Heidenreich, with Tezga and Chapman. So you're losing those guys, but the offensive line, if you have that, you can. If you have the offensive line, you can go from there.
This is going to be a really fun year of Service Academy football. Like every year, it's a joy to watch these programs. These programs are like a great reminder of what makes college football great. But this year, especially with the offensive line continuity, we're seeing an Army and Navy continuity, Air Force as well, that we'll have in the Mountain West episode. It really feels like all three teams can be really good this year. And that is just a lot of fun to watch. So I'm excited about that as well. And again, Woodson will do a good job taking over quarterback. But of course, at the same time, losing Blake Horvath, he was a very special quarterback for them, especially what he could offer in the passing game was really incredible. Those skill players that you mentioned, again, losing 2 NFL draft picks. Like, you don't see Navy get guys drafted very often. They have 2 guys drafted. So that is always going to be tough to replace. Like, they're used to replacing guys, but they're not used to replacing draft picks. So that is going to be interesting to see how they can handle it.
Yeah, like that's just a great point too. Just shows that, especially with Eli Heidenreich, like I think Navy's gonna struggle stretching the field like they did before because, Navy has always had guys that are high explosive receivers, like 20 yards a catch guys, 18 to 20 range. Like Jameer Tillman comes to mind from like the mid 2010s. Really great receiving talent, right? But you don't have a guy that averages that clip at the volume that Eli Heidenreich did. So I really think that they're going to struggle stretching the field, but that doesn't mean that the intermediate game won't be there. It's just harder for a team running the scheme like Navy, like Army, like Air Force to have that intermediate game, especially when Navy hasn't really had great tight end play, and at least in the passing game. Excellent blockers, but in the passing game, the tight ends are kind of an unproven commodity in the intermediate game. I don't think they're going to be able to stretch the field like they were in the past couple of years.
Agreed. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and say that success for them, of course, looks like winning the Commander-in-Chief trophy. And I would say, yes, Navy loses some of these guys, but the turnover in the rest of the conference means that I think Navy's target is to win the American this year. When there's a lot of turnover elsewhere, it's a great opportunity for the service academies to take advantage and win the conference. So I'm going to say a conference title for me.
I'm going to agree with you, conference title and Commander-in-Chief's trophy. I'm not going to say a playoff as well because, the playoff is nice, but with the mission of both Army, Navy, and Air Force, it's having one more game to play is whatever it is, whether it's a bowl game, whether it's a playoff, it's always a benefit. Even though playoff would be nice. I mean, you win all three of those, you do both of those, conference championship, bowl game, win the Commander in Chiefs trophy. More importantly, that's success. And honestly, I'm not buying in on Navy winning the American, but I will say that they have the schedule to do so. They have a very 2024 Army-esque schedule. They only have Memphis out of the big three. I mean, and they have Memphis at home too at that. So that's gonna be huge for them. Like, they don't have Tulane. They have North Texas team is depleted. I think the only trouble spot is like UTSA at the Alamo Dome. So
Yeah, and give me a moment here because my camera just decided I'm not going to stay on anymore. That's annoying. Okay, this is gonna be awful video quality, but yeah, I don't know what is going on. All right, so we'll continue on here. North Texas is next up. I think what's exciting about them is it's going to be really tough in this with all the turnover, but I still think they got some good quarterback candidates, whether that's Taven Jackson or even Chris Jimerson Jr. is a young quarterback that they've been really high on internally. They have two great options there, and Jaheim White, running back, was such a great pickup. He was a guy who was the star at West Virginia last year, so he's going to be ready to step in and play very well also.
yeah, I really like the additions I got on offense, and just to expand upon that, I really like the receiver options. Like, I always like when a guy from a lower division school that has an amazing season just steps up and shows what he can do at the FBS level. Like TJ Chukwuora, like 66 catches, 1,100 yards, 16 touchdowns at Black Hills State. Like, I don't think North Texas is going to have any problem stretching the field. And then even on top of that, like Grayson O'Bara, a honorable mention all Ivy League product for Dartmouth. I love the Ivy League, so I got to shout them out when I can. But I'm really impressed with who they're able to get in the receiver room from the transfer portal. And also James Tyre, too, at 832 yards and 11 touchdowns at West Carolina. So, like, there's no shortage of options for Jackson this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, what is your biggest concern for me?
It's hard because I also like what they got on defense, but I think it's really difficult because this is just a brand new team like Memphis, like picking. It's like picking like what I think might be an issue based on who they brought in. But I want to say that I don't think the defensive line had as many graded solid additions. Like the linebacker, they got a couple FBS proven guys that can get in the backfield. The defensive backs are real ball hawks, but the defensive line leaves much to be desired in terms of what they got in the portal.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, not to sound like a broken record, but another team with a lot of turnover. I mean, this is especially one of the ones that, I mean, practically was starting over with a whole new roster this year. So there's just a lot of variability around that. What does success look like for the Mean Green?
Success for the Mean Green. I want to say just a bowl game, to be honest with you. I think the fans will understand. Like, last year was an outstanding high, but this is just a brand new team, and I think they might be a year away again. That's not to say it's going to be a complete rebuild, but I wouldn't be surprised if the team drops off. I mean, even a little bit. Like, I mean, I would even say 7-5, 8-4 is a huge drop off on paper. It is, right? You win 12 games, and on paper it's a huge drop off, but I mean, like I think a bowl game is given the circumstances is success for them.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to say the same thing because, and North Texas fans so far that I've heard from, they all said the same thing. Like they're hoping to make it to a bowl this year, and I think that's good enough to help them maintain this program momentum that they have because 2025 was truly a game changer. It really got North Texas on the map in a very crowded Dallas area. So I think making a bowl game kind of helps maintain that momentum a little bit. We got to continue the speed run here a little bit, but we'll go to the Rice Owls. I think I know what excites you the most about this team.
2 words: Quentin Jackson. Quentin Jackson almost had 1,000 yards last year, and it just amazes me that he can essentially be the dive back in this shotgun option at the size that he is, 5'7", less than 200 pounds. But the sky's the limit for Jackson. Only thing is he'll have much of a heavier burden, at least in my eyes, because the guy playing the kind of slot back role in Aaron Turner is gone. So it's a mystery as to who's going to be that sort of slot back guy on the edge. But man, yeah, I'm excited about Aaron Turner. And it seems, even though they lost Chase Jenkins at quarterback and Lucas Shearhorn, the combination of Lucas Shearhorn and Patrick Creighton Jr. in the bowl game, wasn't great. I mean, looks like Ja'Curry Brown could really, like, seems like he's perfect for this offense, like Chase Jenkins was. like Chase Jenkins was last year.
Yeah, I'm very excited about seeing Ja'Cory Brown, and I think it was really encouraging that he won the job so soon too. I think it showed a good sign that he grasped this offense. He runs it very well, so that was a very encouraging sign for them. But yeah, for the biggest concern, I think in general it's been for Rice. They when they have a talent deficit, they've really struggled to cope with that last year. Games got away with them very quickly. And in general, like this team struggles with pass protections. When it comes time to pass the ball, it usually gets pretty ugly.
Yeah, so I would have to agree, I would have to agree in terms of playing from behind. It's definitely true. Like the receiving core kind of leaves much to be desired. I know Drayden Dickman being gone is a huge one. That's the one that comes to mind for me. Like he was a guy that, I mean, a steady receiver for them. But for my weakness, I'm just gonna go with the defensive line. I think the fact that they lost Blake Banish or Bonish, or I forgot how to pronounce his name, but he went to the Shrine Bowl, NFL talent, just huge stopper in the middle. I mean, and it all starts in the middle on your defense. So I think that's the biggest weakness for them.
And what does success look like for Rice this year?
So for Rice, honestly, just a bowl game. It's just a program that's playing for a bowl game, but maybe not in the academic way. If they can go 6-6 and reach a bowl, get their 6 wins, and show that progress, at least on paper, with Scott Abell, and even like pull off an upset or two against one of the top teams in the league with that option offense, I think Rice fans are just going to be happy with that, honestly. So this isn't a fan base that asks for so much. They let Mike Bloomgren stick around for a while.
For Rice, I think also success looks like a bowl game. I think that would be in 6-6 in particular during the regular season will be very encouraging. Show some more progress, and I think even like you said, maybe even pull off an upset or two. I actually think a path to 6-6 probably requires that anyways, but yeah, I know because the schedule looks pretty difficult this year. We moved to the South Florida Bowls. Made a lot of headlines this year with Brian Hartline as their coach. What are your thoughts on them?
So I'm going to say that oddly, the skill group that I'm going to talk about that excites me the most is the running back room, honestly. Yeah, and I know Brian Hartline, much has been made about Brian Hartline being a receiver guru, but I'm really excited about this running back room because DJ Crocker was great at Dartmouth last year, 929 yards, 10 touchdowns, and he spends his last year of eligibility out here at USF. And of course, I like this guy a lot too, in Jason Collins, in the fact that he at his peak, Jason Collins is one of the most electric backs in the FCS, and I think that carries over to the group of 6. I think he'll be one of the most electric backs there as well if he can stay healthy. He had a couple of great performances, so much so that the coaches recognized that greatness and made him the 2025 preseason Offensive Player of the Year in the MEAC, and that didn't work out as much because he got hurt. But I'm really excited about this running back room, and I think that this is going to be a team that, oddly, I think it's going to lean more on the run just because of those 2 playmakers that they have.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, the receiver room is great as well. They definitely loaded up a wide receiver. I also like the defense. I think the defensive coordinator, Josh Aldridge, he comes in. I think he's going to keep a lot of offenses guessing with the looks he gives. So I'm very curious to see how that ends up panning out. I think really their defense could end up being pretty solid as well. What is your biggest concern for the Bulls? This is the team probably expects... Oh, wait, never mind. We'll get to that part later.
My concern is definitely the quarterback position, just because it is such a tough act to follow with Byron Brown. And, I mean, the guys, they have guys that are experienced and have high ceilings, but it's just so unfortunate that they're going to have to go to a very high ceiling, that the guy that they're going to replace has probably one of the highest ceilings imaginable in Byron Brown. Luke Kromenhoek and Michael Van Buren are both great, solid quarterbacks that we know have talent, but I just think it's just going to be tough. And I expect, like, the first few weeks, I expect this team to, while they work out the kinks, oddly enough, to be more of a running team. Maybe that's wrong and all, but I just think the quarterback position what concerns me the most. But again, like, it's weird because everyone's starting over, and I feel like, I can say the same thing about Memphis, North Texas, about all these teams. So, which is why it's just kind of like doing these previews.
Yeah, I do like that their non-conference schedule kind of gives a nice little on-ramp too. But mine's going to be very specific. My biggest concern is Tim Beck. Plain and simple as the offensive coordinator. I was very surprised that was the hire here because his offenses just always seem to be very clunky, a lack of flow, and it's been like that at every single stop, even when he was the head coach of Coastal Carolina. So I was a little surprised by that move. We'll see if he could do something different, but that is my biggest source of pessimism for the South Florida Bulls.
See, that is fair, honestly. Like, I'm not one to look at coaching staffs as much, and maybe I should, honestly. So, I mean, more credit to you, Justin, but that's a really great point because I'm sure a Coastal Carolina fan will tell you in no uncertain terms that Tim Beck kind of torpedoed the program, at least offensively. And I'd have to agree with them because that program is it's a different program offensively. They had something great going with Jamie Chadwell's offense, and you would have thought that they would have done something similar to that. But yeah, like so that's a really great catch, honestly. And I'll be looking more intently at that. I'll have that definitely in mind when I watch USF.
Yeah, I think also just like it's kind of one of those things that makes me think maybe next year my article series, like I might shorten the roster part and do like a coaching thing. I did that with ULM because they didn't have a roster published. But anyways, yeah. So what does success look like for the Bulls?
So I think this is the fan base that's hungry, and I think that looking at the types of schools with these type of fan bases, your Tulane, your Memphis, your USF. Even though USF is a little later to the party, this is your ACC adjacent American Conference schools, the schools that are always in the ACC talks. Like I think a conference championship is definitely like what they want too. Like this has been a 3-year process with 23, 24, and 25. Like 23 was the start, 24 Byron Brown was hurt, 25 the team just faltered down the stretch inexcusably, honestly, in losing, in sliding against Memphis and everything. I mean, the Navy game was definitely excusable, playing on the road, and they just outplayed that game. But like I think a conference championship, it's conference championship or bust for USF. I mean, again, if the fan, I think the fans understand that too. Like if they're gonna tout themselves as an ACC program, going to the Gasparilla Bowl, the Boca Raton Bowl, playing a Power 4 team just isn't enough for them.
Yeah, I agree, and that's kind of where I mean, South Florida and Rice are both the programs in this conference that were in what you could consider a power conference at one point. South Florida was in the Big East in their heyday, and they're one of the rare teams that kind of got left behind a little bit. But now they're Temple as well. Yeah, I almost forgot about them because they got kicked out of the Big East, and then now they're back in the new version of it. But yeah, South Florida. I think I'm not going to say a conference championship just because, and this is the big reason why they're hungry for a championship, because, their fans always keep hearing about how they have never won one before. So I think at some point they want to see that coming. And I think here they just want to see signs that it's going to happen soon and really just avoid those really frustrating losses. I think will be great for them. Well, you mentioned Temple. Let's go to Temple. What are you most excited about with the Owls?
Not staged, I promise. I mean, this is another. I think this team. I know I've been saying this a lot at the wide receiver position, but I think Temple has the best wide receiver room in the American. Like combined with like who they got out of the portal and who is still on the team. JoJo Bermudez was very dangerous and scary last year. He returns. Colin Chase is your trusty slot receiver. Actually led the team in receptions, but had 100 fewer yards than JoJo Bermudez. Peter Clark. Man, like I wouldn't be surprised if he wins the Mackey, to be quite frank with you. Like Pro Football Focus loves him. I remember seeing he was like high on the Pro Football Focus rankings at some point. He is just a matchup nightmare. And if that weren't enough, like they added Jace Freeman, one of the best deep threats in the FCS. Over the past 2 years, averaged, I think, over 20 yards a catch, including just a mind-blowing year in 2024 at Stolney Brook, where he caught 23 passes, had 506 yards and 6 touchdowns. And as if that weren't enough, they went and grabbed DeMonte Green, who had 94 catches for 1,344 yards and 12 touchdowns. Like, Casey Keeler, and I've said this before, and I think I said this on a podcast I'm going to release as well, just a general Group of 6 talk. Like, Casey Keeler, I think his eye for talent in the portal, like, Coach Huff calls himself the portal king, but I think Casey Keeler is the portal, and just if you're talented, he will find you. And I think that's evidenced in Curly Ordonez, who their leading tackler was from a JUCO. Wasn't even a portal guy. The JUCO guy was their leading tackler, and he returns too. So, man, like Temple's offense excites me. It's gonna be scary.
Yeah, I like Casey Keeler was such a huge hire for them, and I'm excited now that they're in year 2. I mean, he took a team in the roster that was really struggling, kind of cobbled it together a little bit and immediately already improved it. Now this year really takes off. To put it simply, Temple Tough is going to be back this year. Not only do they have the skill talent on the outside, but I'm expecting this team to be more physical, to really lean on teams, really have that South Philly tough to them. So I'm very excited about that. I think they're going to be really good. I think maybe they even upset Penn State, beat them for a second time in a row. But yeah, so I like Temple a lot this year. I'm really high on this team. What concerns you the most?
So they have all these weapons to play with, and I'm sure that this is going to get resolved at some point. But the quarterback position really has no experience, especially replacing a guy like Evan Simon, who, when upright, could really scare teams. That was always an issue the last 2 years. But I mean, like Jackson Smolik and more so like a Johnny Shepard, like those guys aren't really as experienced. So I'm excited to see who comes out as a starter in that quarterback race. But that's just a concern, especially with who they have to replace. Like especially like it's kind of like with USF, where I don't doubt that the talent's there, but the guy that they have to replace had just such a high ceiling relative to the program too for Evan Simon.
Yeah, I agree. That was exactly what I was going to say as well. I think when you have turnover, when you have unproven guys at the most important position, you naturally have to worry about that. So yeah, that's where I'm at too. I think that is where if Temple does not fully get back to contention, like I think they will, I think the quarterback position will be the main culprit there. What is a successful season for Temple this year?
I mean, a bowl game for Temple, honestly. Well, first off, let me say success for Temple looks like not giving up a 50-yard, 10-minute game-ending drive against Army. That's what success looks like for Temple. I'm sorry. I still think it's hilarious. It got us to a bowl game. I still think it's hilarious. Like, sorry, Temple. Sorry. Thanks for playing. You only got the ball 5 times. But all jokes aside, I have no ill will against Temple fans, and I generally want Temple to do well. I think it's definitely great for them to do well, honestly, with all the history that they have. But simply a bowl game would just be great for them. I don't doubt that if Casey Keeler stays, I don't know if he's going to be gunning for a Power 4 job the same way that Willie Fritz was. I can kind of see a sort of Willie Fritz arc with Casey Keeler because he's 67. You kind of wonder like when his last chance to really cash in will be. So I don't know if, like you mentioned with Jason Eck, if Temple's working on borrowed time. But if he stays, I don't doubt that Temple's going to win a conference championship in the next 5 years, honestly. And I know that's a bold statement, but for now, a bowl game is just enough for this fan base. So I'm excited, frankly. I mean, I'm not even a Temple fan, but I'm excited for this team this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I am too. I did think about wearing my Temple hat instead, one of the new ones in my collection. But yeah, Casey Keeler. I mean, it kind of felt to me like maybe he decided this is building Temple up was going to be his last ride. So and because this is back in the area that he's very familiar with, obviously, having a lot of success in Delaware and everything. But that's all to say. I think a bowl game as well would be successful, but I think this team could be looking at a winning record, maybe even 8 wins. We go to the Tulsa Golden Hurricane. What excites you the most about what Tulsa has this year?
I think Baylor Hayes excites me the most. Anytime you can keep a young quarterback who had a great year, who started for you, had experience and had a Power 4 win under the belt, anytime you can keep them in the portal era, it's just a great sign. And I think he has just great potential at Tulsa. Excuse me. I think the scheme will definitely be more exciting this year than it was without the growing pains that they had. But I'm just excited for Baylor Hayes, honestly. I think that he's one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the conference, and I think that, honestly, 3,000 yards is, I think, realistic too, especially when this is kind of a spoiler for my weakness, especially without Dominic Richardson at running back to kind of be the focal point of the offense.
Well, it'll be interesting because, I was very excited about really all the talent all around that the Tulsa Portal House brought in. The Tulsa Portal House was a lot of fun, but it actually seemed to pay off. Like, they brought in a lot of talent at so many positions. Like, I thought the edge rushers they brought in were really good. The guys in the secondary, and I actually was very excited about the running backs they brought in as well. So that'll be kind of an interesting conversation here in the moment. But yeah, I was very excited about what they brought in from the Portal House. Yeah, so let's hear about it.
Yeah, so I mean, the running back position for me is tough because I don't know if this offense will take a different style this year because speaking as a as a Dominic Richard, as a fan of a team that was a victim of Dominic Richardson, he really wore teams down, and that is something that's great when you have a young quarterback. And so for me, I just don't know. I don't know how drastic the shift is going to be in terms of load. Like Baylor Hayes is great, but I don't know if he'll still need to work in a scheme like that where you have a really star running back. And I know they brought in running back talent, but again, it's just like he said, she said in terms of like what they can do in the portal. Like there's very few like proven commodities in the American Conference. I think at least with that, because a lot of the transfers tend to be like upward transfers. But yeah, like the running back position is my concern, honestly.
Yeah, I don't know. I think not only do they have a lot of talented guys, I think they're also really deep at the position. So while last year it was Dominic Richardson really wearing teams down, my expectation is it's going to be rotating guys in and out, have that fresh set of legs in the fourth quarter to wear teams down. We go to what are your expectations for Tulsa this year? What do you think success looks like?
I think Tulsa can contend with for a bowl, honestly. I'm not going to write them off this year, but I think success for Tulsa, it's kind of weird because they're kind of far removed from the Philip Montgomery years. Even 2020 seems like far away. So, I mean, this is a program that has had success in the past decade or so, but it's not a fan base that's quite so much like demanding for much, really. So I think a bowl game would suffice here. I don't think that, but yeah, at the same time, despite the record, I don't think the situation's as doom and gloom as it is for Charlotte per se, even UAB.
Yeah, I agree. For sure, I'm definitely thinking the bowl. I mean, this is a program that is used to contending for conference titles. Despite their nature, like they actually carry pretty high expectations. So, or at least like historically, they've had a lot of good results. So I think you want to see they want to be back to that. Like get to a bowl game, be competitive against those bigger programs. Like if you're going to start to work your way into the upper echelon of the American, this is the year to do it with so much turnover with the top programs. So that'll be what I'm looking for with them. We go to the UAB Blazers. What excites you the most about the Blazers this year?
So for UAB, I think what excites me the most is I'm going to go with the quarterback position. I think Ryder Burton has a lot of potential. There's another team that I think Tulsa and UAB have similar builds per se. I think they're both rocking with young quarterbacks that had high points last year, and Ryder Burton had the highest of highs that you could have as a quarterback in the American, beating Memphis on the road. So I'm excited there because at least the cupboard isn't bare at UAB at the skills. And he returns under Alex Mortensen, a system he's familiar with. So I'm excited to see the leap that he'll take, honestly. And I think that I think UAB did a good job as kind of one of those one of those teams that has the last chance archetype. They got some really good 4-star talent at the running back position, at the wide receiver position, that guys that didn't have the chance to prove themselves. So Ryder Burton, the conditions are there for him to have a really good year, possibly even better than his predecessor, Jalen Kitna.
Yeah, I agree with that. That was what I was going to say as well. But especially, I'll emphasize those receivers. Like they got a lot of speed at the position. It can really help, turn into easy points for them. So I like that a lot for them. I'll go into the defense. Sorry, I was going to say my concern, but I leaked it there. The defense for sure. I mean, last year their defense rated worse than even UMass, I believe. So they need to simply be good at something and just stop having all the unforced errors, coverage busts, everything like that.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that because, I mean, UAB, I want to say, like, if the defense played just a little bit better against, like, say, Navy, they had Navy sweating for a good amount of that game at NMCS Stadium. So I do agree with that. And unfortunately for UAB compared to FAU, I think for UAB the defense has to be even better than FAU, like has to be able to a higher standard than FAU, because this isn't exactly a quick strike offense. I know that Jalen Kitna, while he was there, it was a very high volume. He was a very high volume thrower. I think that for like a few of the games, like he had like over 50 pass attempts for, I think, just like to get in the high 300s or the high 400 yards. So it's a very high volume offense that isn't as quick to strike. So, I mean, the defense has to do a bit more. So I would agree with you.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. So like what do you think looks like a successful season for UAB? A win in the battle for the Bones?
Yes. So I will not be betting on that, but I would hate to be like as bleak as this And it's kind of interesting that we're recording this like at the time that we are, because it kind of goes along with it. But just the other day, like just yesterday, the UFL announced that they're moving out of Birmingham, right? And so a lot of people the last 2 years under Coach Trent Dilfer would show how the stands looked at Protective Stadium, and showed like they were trying to kill this program again. And so this program desperately needs to not be the laughing stock of the American Conference. And I don't mean that to be mean. I know it's easy to punch down on UAB as an Army fan, but like honestly, like they need to generate some buzz somehow this year. Like whether that's beating Memphis again, this time at home, whether that's winning a few games against the lower division of the conference, against the bottom 7 of the conference. Like they just need some buzz to at least show that there's a trajectory to get back to the Bill Clark years. And maybe it's not even that bad, but from what I see on social media with the way that these crowds are, like the fan base is about to reach the apathy of the late Watson Brown years, and that's a dangerous place to be.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm hoping in general, like we'll see attendance pick up just simply because Trent Dilfer is not there anymore. They could not stand him. So I know that was part of it too. Like they went out of their way to make sure they did not go to games just because they wanted them out of there. But I think in general, looking like you said, like they need to show positive signs. They need to be competitive. They maybe even work towards a bowl game. Just kind of show that, because I think some of the more pessimistic UAB fans probably thought, oh well, we just hired the guy internally. We didn't want to do a full search. We were too cheap to do that. That kind of stuff can make fans not take the program seriously and thus not show up. So they need on-field results that show, okay, this is going to move in the right direction. So for our next team, we mentioned earlier, this is going to be in alphabetical order. I apologize. Got too excited to try to lure Omar into another battle for the bones bet this year. We accidentally skipped Tulane. So let's go with the Tulane Green Wave now. What excites you the most about this team?
Yeah, I mean, shoot, it's a good thing that Coach Summerall's not coaching the Green Wave anymore. He'd make you a soundbite, Justin. He would find material really quick. But for Tulane, I think success. Or I'm sorry, I'm already thinking it. But for me, what excites Tulane the most about Tulane is the defense, honestly. And I think in a year where you're going through another transition at quarterback, I mean, this is their fourth starter in 4 years, I think. Yeah, fourth starter in 4 years, and Zion Chris Gramillion. Like the defense is gonna have to come up huge, but luckily, like they return their two leading tacklers, and I can't pronounce the name, Jack Chenchu, I think. I think it's a very hard.
Chachu. I know that TCH always throws everyone off.
Yeah, but it's throwing me off. But like, yeah, they return their top two tacklers in him, Chris Rogers. The secondary is solid as well, and Isaiah Shire or Shine, and then man, my handwriting is so bad. But they also return a safety that had 2 interceptions as well, and I think that's Kevin Adams. Kevin Adams at safety. I need to improve my handwriting, but the defense is really gonna ease that transition at quarterback that they're going to go through once again, even though it seemed kind of seamless last.
Yeah, agreed. I was going to say, like, the entire back of the defense, linebacker and secondary excites me a lot about this team. I think they're going to be really great back there. I also think the running game is going to look really well. I think there's a lot to like the running back position. Feels like the offensive line is going to be a little bit better than what it was last year. So, and of course, in general, like Tulane's program has really gotten themselves a really strong winning culture. They have been, ever since the breakout in the Cotton Bowl, they have been in the American Championship every single year. So this is always a team you have to consider at the top. So that's a lot to be excited about. Now for the concern side, and actually this is another one where I'm going to look at a coach. Will Hall has to prove himself here. He did not have a successful era at Southern Miss. The only highlight really of that era was the Frank Gore Jr. Superback time, where they lost all their quarterbacks to injury. So Frank Gore Jr. ended up playing quarterback, and basically it was just like an offense where they just ran the ball every play, and they ended up using him as the Superback moving forward because of how that went. But yeah, Will Hall has to prove himself here. The Southern Miss era, outside like 1 year, I think, where they made a bowl game, it was a struggle. So now in a bigger job, he will need to have success immediately.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go. The Will Hall as well. Kind of scratch my head. I know they hired internally, and it's good to hire in the staff when you have something good going, but Hall's track record as a coach in a lesser conference is definitely concerning. So we'll just have to see, honestly. But at least on the upside, it is an internal hire. But I was going to say the exact same thing. Like, nothing convinces me that Will Hall is going to be successful at Tulane. But they have the winning tradition and culture. And if you have that, that's a very firm baseline. It's probably the hardest thing to establish if you're a new coach. But it's already there. So.
Yeah, absolutely. You have the Ferrari already. You just don't. You just have to not crash it. One roster thing I'll mention is also the defensive line got hit so hard by the portal, so hard. So that'll be one other challenge. I think this one's going to be an easy one. What does success look like for Tulane?
Winning the conference, going to the playoff. Obviously, I mean this is now one of the class programs of the group of six. Like there's no excuse otherwise. So even sprinkle in a win over Kansas State as well on the road as successful too. Like they had 2 Power 4 wins. Like if they go over in their Power 4 games, then that's also probably something that's seen as as not a success. But honestly, yeah, obviously making the conference championship and going to the playoff is a non-negotiable at Tulane now.
Or maybe Duke. No, we got screwed by Darian Mensah Bowl. But yeah, I think at a minimum, making the American Championship is a requirement. I mean, again, like they made the American Championship every single year for the past several years now. So why settle for anything less? And we get to our final team here, last but not least, the UTSA Roadrunners. What are your thoughts on UTSA?
So I'm really excited for the running back position. They seem to just be generating great running backs out there. I mean, Robert Henry was amazing last year. Definitely. I mean, a Doak Walker candidate for much of the year, or Doak Walker front runner for most of the year. Last year, Will Henderson this year too might be even better. So the running back position, people are going to talk about Owen McCown, but this might be as deep an offense as Temple's, honestly. So the running back position excites me the most about the Roadrunners.
Yeah, I was thinking something similar too. Like they have a star there. Like low key, Henderson was just as good, if not better, than Robert Henry. So like he is a true star, and even behind him, there's some young guys who got in the action in the First Responder Bowl, and they played well also. So there's a lot to be excited about there. I think also for the Roadrunners, I love the size of the interior of their defensive line. It's going to be pretty hard to run the ball against this team. Owen McCown is really good. And of course, you got like a speedster in AJ Wilson who can take the top off the defense. So there's really a lot to like about that. And what are you looking at concern-wise?
I think at the linebacker position, they lost a good amount, honestly. So the linebacker position, the defensive line looks pretty solid from what I researched, but I think the linebacker position is probably the most concerning. Honestly, they did lose a bunch. That is one area that a lot of guys didn't stay. Coach Traylor did a great job of retention this year, but that's kind of a concern for me. But I think this is the case like FAU, where the offense is going to be really good and the defense just needs to just put their finger in the dam and hope it doesn't burst.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, linebacker, really the whole defensive front took a lot of losses outside of those defensive tackles on the inside. Lost some edge rushers as well. So really the big question is, how do you get to the quarterback with all these guys gone? It's not a huge concern because this program has done a really good job churning out edge rushers, but when you have a little bit of unpredictability there, you never know. So what does success look like for UTSA this year?
I think UTSA fans are looking, I think they're thinking this is the year, and I'm thinking it too, honestly, to spoil things. I think making the conference championship game and winning, honestly, is success for this program, because there's so much turnover at the top like that. This really seems like it's the year for UTSA. As for playoff, like it's one of those things where like it would be nice, really. I mean, this program hasn't reached a New Year's Six bowl, but if you win the American, it's kind of like you're a playoff front runner if you win the American. But if they somehow trip up in non-conference and end up not making the playoff, I think the fans are just happy enough with just winning the American.
Yeah, for sure. And one of those potential tripping points is, of course, the Battle of I-35, which under that, I'll mention as one of their goals for sure. Success looks like winning the Battle of I-35. And in general, like I think they just want to see a little bit more success. But I do think success may look like making it to the American Championship. They've had a hard time taking the show on the road the last few years, but this year they actually have a pretty good advantage. I feel like most of the top contenders have to come to the Alamo Dome, where we know they've had some pretty pretty intense powers the last few years, to say the least. So we know they play well there. The road schedule is not intimidating. I don't remember. I should remember this because I just looked at it a little bit before the episode, but I know they play at Rice and at UAB, for example. So the road schedule is not intimidating. So it might look like at least an appearance in the conference championship. All right, it's time to put our cards on the table here. Omar, what is your sleeper pick for the American?
Temple, honestly. Like, I think the talent is there for Temple, really. And I haven't looked at the schedule as much in depth, but I know that this team has a high ceiling talent wise. So I think a lot will be revealed in that Penn State game if they compete well with Penn State compared to how they competed against Oklahoma last year. I think people are going to be on notice for the Temple Owls. But again, like I said, that's a program that's like probably 1 or 2 years away. But that's my sleeper pick. If they put it together this year, then I would not be surprised if they end up making it to the first weekend of December.
Yeah, I was actually thinking Temple as well, so I'll go with a different pick because there's so many options here. I'll go with Tulsa. I'm a huge fan of what they brought in from the Tulsa Portal House. I think they're going to be a team that can be instantly competitive and take that huge step forward. So I'm going to go with Tulsa on that.
And it's interesting. It's interesting. The Portal House, as much as I wasn't a fan of it, it clearly generated some buzz, so I can't blame them.
All right, what is your American Conference title pick? Or championship game?
My championship game pick is UTSA against Tulane, but I have Tulane beating UTSA, honestly. I just think that's just because the experience that the program has at that stage, although I could be proven wrong if it ends up being at the Alamo Dome, because that has been known to be a great atmosphere for conference championship weekend, so that could definitely like flip things, but I'm going with the Tulane beating UTSA in the title game.
All right, we're gonna go a little bit bolder here. I think an entirely different championship game. So this is gonna be a fun one. I'm gonna go with Memphis versus Navy, and I got Navy winning.
Hey, okay, that's interesting. Okay, for me, like I know Navy is a trendy pick, but I just think that they lose too much in the skills position in the backfield for them to like really be a championship caliber team. But I could be proven wrong because Isaiah Bryant is explosive as a kick returner, so that's going to translate well. And Charles Robinson had flashes last year, so I mean that's not a crazy pick.
Yeah. I'm thinking the machine keeps going. I was very torn, actually. Because of all the turnover. Like, I think for sure, I'm saying right now, I think for sure a service academy makes the conference championship. So it was between Navy and Army for me.
That's good. That's good. I know that's also another trendy pick, but I just think the schedule's too tough for Army this year, really, with Memphis and and Tulane and FAU potentially, even though having the Florida schools at home is definitely a huge plus.
Yeah, agreed. And that was kind of what was my tiebreaker in my mind, was kind of how the schedule shaked out a little bit.
Yeah, it's favorable for Navy. Definitely favorable for Navy.
Absolutely. So it'll be a lot of fun. Again, like we just mentioned, 4 championship contenders right there. So yeah, make sure you watch the American this year because this conference is going to be a lot of fun. Omar, where can the people find you?
So you can find me a lot of places. I'm going to have to do this really quick. Mainly redshirtsports.xyz. Do a bunch of stuff at all levels there. Working on some exciting partnerships there. You can find me at AsForFootball, doing my weekly Army stuff, doing the American as the American fanboy, doing the recaps and the previews, and a lot of Army history stuff. And also, too, I do the UMass beat for By the Bell, among other things. And also, you can find me on my podcast, The Hardware Pod, each week during the season.
Awesome. Make sure you give them a follow over there. Thank you for joining us, Omar. And of course, thank you for tuning in. Be sure to like or subscribe, depending on what platform you're watching or listening to this. You can always find us on social media as well at Updog Sports Talk. We are also Updog Sports Talk on Substack, where you can find even more in-depth previews of these teams. So thank you for tuning in and have a good one.